All right, guys, you're in charge. What do you do? Middleweight. What do you do? I imagine you're going to book a fight between Adesanya and Cannonier. It would certainly appear that that's the right thing to do. And I do think that Cannonier has shown us, absent of Robert Whittaker, he's the next best thing, right? I mean, Cannonier's been damn near perfect. He's shown everything in his fights. I mean, he can punch and he can kick and he can wrestle. He can deal with adversity, which you just showed us against Brunson, right? He can weather a storm. He can come back. He's awesome. He's an absolute stud, but MMA math does factor in at some point. The last loss that he had was to Whittaker. Whittaker just failed against the same opponent. It gets a little bit tough to how am I going to present this fight? That could go on to be an amazing fight. Who cares? If your job is to book a fight, you got to know what is going into with anticipation, not what came out the back end being good. There's all sorts of fights that were good that nobody saw. Your job on the front end as leadership that I'm tasking you with right now is what do you do ahead of time to build an anticipation? And let's say you're going to show an integrity to the rankings in the sport, which is done ever so often. For sure, you're booking Cannonier and Adesanya. For sure. But that leaves a lot of other players. What do you do with them? I got some inside scoop. I won't tell you who I got it from. They're looking at Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. Now, whatever Sean Strickland does next, if he wins, he will be next for the winner of Cannonier Adesanya, particularly if that winner is Adesanya. Right? I can see if Cannonier was to find a way and upset Adesanya, I can see where they go right into an immediate rematch and get that business settled sooner rather than later. But once we know this, once we have some real clarity, and we very seldomly do, and we have not had real clarity in a meaningful amount of time at middleweight. I mean, we all believed and knew the next best thing to Izzy Adesanya is Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker didn't want the match. Robert Whittaker went out and had 2 or 3 guys. While being offered Adesanya, he still went and fought multiple guys preparing for the match with Adesanya. That's okay. What I'm speaking to is just the fact that we haven't had a real clarity here. It is crystal clear, Sean Strickland, 1 win away, bring in anybody you want. Put any human in front of him. Once Sean gets done with them, Sean goes and fights for the title. Have I won you over there? Are we agreeing on this? Okay. Well, then let's go back to the rumor at hand, which is Paulo Costa. I love in a fight when we have a semifinal match. When we have a number 1 contenders match, it's extremely rare. More common is to have a big match, and if this guy wins, in this case Sean Strickland, he gets to fight for the belt. But that doesn't mean it's a number 1 contenders match, because if this guy, in this case Paulo Costa, wins, he does not. What do you do in those situations? Because it would seem as though if you're taking the only guy who was clearly 1 win away and you're putting him in there with the Terminator, who's beaten damn near everything he's ever touched, it seems like you're putting the goose in a risky spot. That doesn't mean you don't do it. Sean Strickland wants to fight Paulo Costa. Nobody wants to fight Paulo Costa. Nobody wants to fight Sean Strickland. Get these guys together. Let them both do the job. But I would imagine if you're in Adesanya's spot, and I keep saying this, and Adesanya's never backed me up on it, so perhaps I'm wrong. But I would assume if I was in Adesanya's spot, I'm looking for some fresh blood. I'm looking for some parity. The mere fact that Cannonier is going to be next, whether you like him or don't like him, you've never competed with him, that's probably exciting news for Izzy. So now you still got to build that fight. I would put them both on the same card. If I was responsible for it, if I've agreed that I'm going to put Sean and Paulo Costa, I'm going to put Izzy and Cannonier on the same card. I'm going to feature middleweights. If anything happens to Cannonier, I'm going to grab Sean. I'm going to send him up the ladder. Well, you got a lot that you got to deal with Paulo Costa, including the fact of, can he make weight? Right? Can he make weight after what he just showed us? He didn't just miss weight for that last fight. He missed it twice. They agreed on 85, then they agreed on 95, then they moved to 205 pounds. I don't mind the fact that Paulo Costa wants another shot and he wants to come back down there. I think that Paulo Costa is a real threat to Izzy Adesanya. I do think Paulo Costa underperformed in that first contest. It seemed like he left his skills in the locker room. That's a real thing. So I am the opposite of a hater. I'm a full supporter. But if we've got our next golden goose in Sean Strickland, that's a tough damn match if you do the math the way I'm breaking it down, which it doesn't matter who Sean beats. Sean just has to get a match in between now and the next availability to a world title fight, which appears to not be available because Cannonier has called dibs. Am I saying anything that sounds off here? Have I said anything so far that doesn't sound right? And I do think that Whitaker should speak up quickly. A lot of people thought Whitaker won that fight. Now, we don't need to rehash that, do back and forth. It was a close fight, hard one to call, no robbery. I thought Whitaker won. I do not think it was a robbery. It was a really hard fight to call. We did at least come away with the same understanding that we left Madison Square Garden when it was Covington versus Usman Part 2, which is we found the right two guys. We have found the right two guys in Whitaker and Adesanya. How do we get them in here a third time? Whitaker has said very little, but he did say, I will do whatever it takes to get in there a third time, whoever I have to go through. I think Whitaker needs to speak up now and loudly. I think he needs to come out and sell himself. I wanted Sean Strickland to try to get in front of Cannonier. Now, if you had allowed me to place a bet, who's going to get the next fight, Strickland or Cannonier? I would have bet it all on Cannonier. I understand the reality. I just think it would serve Sean very well to start speaking up and start fighting for things that aren't just within the unified rules, that are with headlines, that are with esteem, that are with prestige, that are with placements on a card. I like Sean to start going for that a little bit more. I'd like him to make his case loud, and even if he gets swatted away, to be the first thought in everybody's mind the next time that same job offering opens up. That's what I would like. And I think Sean had a way to go. Cannonier was ranked higher. Cannonier fought more recently. Cannonier has not won a round since Sean Strickland has won 2 fights. That's a relevant fact. Cannonier stopped Derek Brunson. He did not win a round. 1 round was completed. You tell me we're splitting hairs here. I don't give a goddamn. I'm not talking about reality. I'm talking about making a compelling argument. Sean Strickland has won 2 main events before Cannonier has even won his last round. I thought he should have been screaming that. I've beaten 7 guys in a row. You didn't even win a round against Derek Brunson. I thought he could have tarnished him a little bit. I don't think that argument's going to win. I get what Cannonier did. I think that Cannonier's the right guy, and we have everything but ink dry on a contract. I'm talking about the argument. I'm talking about to make sure that you're not passed over. I'm talking about speaking up. I'm talking about getting eyeballs on you. Sean Strickland's, he's got it all figured out. He's doing crazy Sean. He's going to run with the crazy thing. I get it, but crazy Sean has got a head on his shoulders, which is why he went for the gimmick in the first place. And even if you're going to get swatted away, and in this scenario, he is. They found the right guy, which is Jared Cannonier. You can still be the backup fighter. You can still get on that same card. There's still politicking to be done. There's still placement. Even once they find your opponent, when, where, there's a whole bunch of this game that's being played. I wanted Sean to have his say. And I do want to hear from Izzy. I do want to know if I'm right. Am I right that Adesanya would like to see some new opponents? Some fresh opponents to study, to mimic, to prepare for? Because Adesanya is in a very tough spot. He's a level of greatness. He's a level of greatness where things get expected to him that are not fair and aren't expected of others. But when you have these true great, they can't lose a round. Then all of a sudden, not only can they not lose a round, they must stop everybody. And then not only must they stop everybody, they must stop everybody fast. And they must stop them decisively. Like, there's just things that are put on Adesanya that aren't fair. But it's his reality. People think that he's in sparring sessions or he's holding back. Look, the greats oftentimes have 2 different speeds. George Foreman, he'd set you up at 1 speed, boom, and he'd step it at a different speed as soon as he lulled you into believing that. Then you have MMA fighters, use Vitor Belfort, for example. I have never seen Vitor waste energy. If Vitor moves a hand in your direction, he is looking to end the night. But there's very few Vitors. There's a lot more Adesanyas. I don't have any problem with the way Adesanya is fighting. I think he's smart. I think he's tactical. I think he's getting better. I think it's unfair what's expected of him. But if that is now the test to be one of the truly great draws from one of the truly great athletes and champions in the sport today, it's still his reality. It's still his cross to bear. And coming out with great fights is after the fact. The skill of the business comes on the front end. How do you build anticipation for a fight that the odds makers have this lopsided?